In this video, I'm going to show you how to edit stock images in Canva. So I like to use stock images for my Pinterest pin images, and I know a lot of people do as well, and a lot of people use Canva, and it just makes sense to use the stock images that are within Canva. They're convenient, right? But the problem is because we're all using them, they're all starting to look the same. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can do some edits to it to make the images look a little different. And you can use this for other stock images you've uploaded into Canva as well from elsewhere. So stock images are images like these where they usually don't have the person's face in it, or they might be facing away from the camera, so not looking directly at you. They usually have some props in the image as well. And for something like this, to keep it all cohesive, I've searched for ones like with pink templates. I'll show you how to find good mock-ups that match your branding colors, for example. So some things to keep in mind with editing and transparency and all those sorts of things and filters and stuff. So let's just go through how you can customize them. So I have gone to the elements menu, and then you can type in whatever you're looking for. So I like to use style desktop. That's a good keyword. And I go to photos and I go see all. Now, a lot of these will have the little crown icon, which means you need to have a Canva Pro subscription, but I highly recommend that you have that because a lot of people who have the free version will be using the same styled images like these ones, and the Pro ones are a bit more classy looking. The colors are brighter, the quality's better. So let's just start with the best image qualities that we can get. So I do recommend the Canva Pro plan for that. And you can see a lot of the same, similar ones come up. Now, they might suit your brand, or maybe you don't want any of these florals or anything in it, and you want to match a specific color. If you click this button up the top here, if you go white, for example, now it will give you ones that have a lot of elements of white in it. And maybe if we went like workspace, you can see they all feature white, and you can change this to pink if your color's pink. Now that's a very hot pink because that's the color that I selected. So if you have your branding colors with your 6-digit hex codes, you can type this in here, hit apply, and it will then find images that have that color tone for you. So you can see now we have pastel pink. So that's really handy to find images that are a bit more on brand. And then you don't even have to edit any of the colors, it's just already producing images that suit the colors that you need anyway. So when you find one that you like, obviously click on it and add it to your template. Now, some people get turned off by the rectangle or the landscape orientation because Pinterest pins are vertical. That's fine. You can resize it. And if you go, well, I've got all this white space, what do? I would actually crop the image. So I would just feature part of the image. So you might have that bit, for example, and you can add your text overlay here. You might get rid of the mug, or maybe you drag it over and you just use this part of it. So from that one stock image, you've actually just created 2 images with the different backgrounds. So don't be afraid to crop things out. And I think the thing that makes it more, aesthetically pleasing with all these stock images is when they crop part of it out. So you can see they didn't keep the entire notebook. They didn't keep the entire keyboard. They actually deliberately crop some images out. And I think that's what makes people drawn to the stock images, that there's not just someone clicking something as a bit of thought into how the image has been cropped. So if it's not already cropped to your liking, you can do that yourself. The other thing to look for when you're looking for these images, depending on obviously your use for them, if you pick something like this, you can see these are all in the same theme, by the way. They're just different variations of the same props. If you pick something like this, you then have space to add text on the top there for your Pinterest pin. But if you had an image that didn't have a lot of white space that you really like, maybe it's something like this, it's got a bit more elements in it, you can always add a box like this over the top. So in the elements menu, I just add, for example, a rectangle, and then I add the text over the top. So that's one way that you can sort of make it more about your topic by adding the text, and then the stock photo becomes more of the background, not the main feature of the image. So I'm going to go back to white because I just prefer the white ones. I think they look a bit classier. So if I pick something like this one here and expand that out. Now let's start editing this image. So if we go to edit, you've got quite a few tools in here that you can use. Some simple ones are filters. So at the moment it's got none, but again, if we're talking about brand colors, you could add a pink tone, and you can always pull back the intensity. So don't get too, hung up on, I don't want hot pink. That's fine. Just drag the intensity back a bit. And you can again add your text, over the top of all of this. Could do some lighter tones. There's heaps of different color shades here that you can choose. You can also change it to monochromatic if you just want black and white. This is a bit hit and miss depending on what stock image you've chosen. You can see there isn't much change in this one when we pick it. You really have to drag that intensity slider up, but you can do black and white, which also stands out on the feed because a lot of people are doing the bright colors. So if you have something that's monochrome, well, that's different. So the eyes are drawn to it. So that's something else to consider. The other things that you can do in these menus here, you can blur elements. Again, all of these editing just really depends on what stock image you've chosen. Sometimes blur works, sometimes it doesn't. Some things look better on certain images. It all depends. So I usually just experiment with whatever image. You can see I've just blurred that, but quite frankly, I think I've blurred it way too much. So I would not blur quite as intense as that if I was going to do it. You can also blur the whole image, which is another way to make it really less obvious that you've used a stock image that everyone else is using. There are some other effects in here as well that you can experiment with. But if you're doing stock images, I generally would just do blur. Now, the other options up here, Magic Studio, these ones are Pro Tools, but they are quite handy. So if you found an image like the ones I was doing before that had pink, and maybe the image you find is just like cuts off there and you don't have any of this extra space on the image, you can add that in, which is pretty cool. So if we go to Magic Expand, and then we can go zoom out a little bit. I just do freeform. If we wanted to expand this out, you can drag that to the right, maybe drag that to the left and hit expand. It can take a little while to run depending on how busy the stock photo is, but it will extend your image out and it's usually pretty accurate. We'll see how good this one is. Usually pretty accurate at like color matching, and it makes it look like whatever you extended was always meant to be there. This one, to be honest, not the best quality. I've seen a lot better than this. This one looks a bit bad, quite frankly. I mean, they did have a good attempt at expanding out the notebook there, but I wouldn't use it for this one. I would try it with a different stock image. A lot of the stock images, though, when you put it on a Pinterest size pin, usually you have to do some like cropping anyway, and it's usually less of a focus on expanding it. So you probably won't need to use this one very often, but if you are going to use it, try and pick ones that have a solid color, and again, hit and miss. So didn't really work that well for that one, but you've got the tool there if you wanted to try it. I don't really use it that often because I usually just reposition the stock image, and that's usually sufficient for what I need. Magic Edit is another one. So if you wanted to add an element, this one's a little hit and miss as well, by the way. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so if I want to add it here, and then I won't add a party hat, I'll do add a notebook, and then hit generate. Again, it might take a while. So you can use this Magic Edit tool, but you can also go to Elements and add graphics as well if there's some props that you want to add that are missing. And you can see this taking a while, but it did add in a notebook for us. Maybe you like this one. The issue that I have with this one is it only gives me 4 image options, and I really thought that it would give you more. It's got all this dead space on the menu here. You think that they could add at least like 10 you could quickly scroll through. Otherwise, you have to keep clicking generate again, and I just don't think it's that amazing. I mean, it's there if you want it, but I would personally instead go back to the Elements menu, type in notebook, and then you can add in something like this yourself. They have plenty in there that already have the transparent background, so you could add that in. Maybe you use that in Magic Eraser to get rid of the plant. And you can put things on an angle, and you could add your own text, and they already add the drop shadows for you, so you can just make it look like it was meant to be part of the original image anyway. So if you want to add props, I would do it via the Elements menu instead, and then you can just type in what you need. Again, a lot of these are on the Pro version. I don't think you can really avoid that. The good stuff's on the Pro version. I do think it's worth paying extra for it, but if you want to, you can filter so you only see free. So there are still some options there. That one could be okay. Just less variety there. up to you depending on, I guess, how much you're using Canva for, whether you think the Pro subscription is worth it. For me, I think it's worth it. So some other things that you can do, we touched on the colors here, but if you wanted to be really, I guess, particular about what color you add, if you go to elements and add a, oops, just get rid of that. Actually, let's just press R and add a rectangle. That'll be quicker. And then if we make that larger, we can choose our branding color. You can, put it in here, and then you can change the transparency of that. And that can also add your color overlay as well. So if you do have a lot of stock images and you want to quickly edit them, you can copy and paste and quickly apply that to all of your images, and that will be faster than going and editing every single image as well. If you do this, you do need to just position things backward, but that's another quick, easy edit that you can do. If you are stuck on finding stock images, some tips. Let's go to Workspace. If you find something that you like and you click on the three dots, it will give you some other suggested keywords, and you can click show all. There are tons here. So this stock image is going to show up anytime someone searches all of these. Now, obviously, if you've got long tail keywords, if you had Workspace with a computer, then it might show up a bit sooner. Maybe not, because I'm not seeing computer on here, oddly. But anyway, if you use long tail keywords, then you might get slightly different search results. So what I'm really getting at here is you can use these keywords to help you find something, but the bigger problem that I have is if I find an image that I like, I have trouble finding it again. So make sure you hit the star icon down the bottom here, and then that will save it as your favorites. You can go to projects and you can find them in there. You can also add them to a folder if you want to use them again. But if you're making something like Pinterest pins, I actually just set up a template, and you can have up to 500 pages in Canva, and then I can simply just copy and paste. So if I know that I like to use the same stock image, but I maybe have different aesthetics, like this here with my text looks a bit different to this text, for example, but you can just copy and paste the stock images across the various templates, and that makes it a lot faster. So, I mean, you can save them, but I usually just have a Canva template and I just copy and paste them that way. So the other things, I'm just going through my list of what else I wanted to show you in this tutorial. Cropping, well, I think everyone knows how to crop, but just in case, if you click on the image and you click this button here, you can then crop it. I generally don't bother cropping. Oops. Why is that not working for me? Usually it works. But you can see I don't really crop that often. I usually just left click and reposition it. And that's, I guess, my version of cropping, because then you just see whatever you want to see. But yeah, I don't know why that's not working for you today. Generally, I just click that and go ahead and crop it. The other thing that I wanted to show you was changing, going to edit, adjust, and then changing all of the saturation and all of those sort of things with the image. So we kind of did it here with the filters, but if you want even more control, you can then change the temperature, make it a bit more bright, whiter. So if you have your own images, you could edit them this way. So a lot of mine have a dark background because I just don't have proper studio set up with professional cameras and all of that. So you can brighten them that way. Because everyone loves the white, photos. You can increase the brightness, but maybe not that much. Contrast, highlights, etc. You can do all your vibrance. And if you use the Canva images, some of them are pretty cool. So this one here is the green color, but you can actually change it so that her leggings are pink. Isn't that cool? It's not super accurate here with this little blue that's remaining, but if you find an image that you like and you're really obsessed with things being on brand and using specific colors, then you can always edit it that way. There's another option. You can tweak all this sort of stuff as well. So that was all I had for this video. I hope you found it helpful for editing stock images. If you want to speed up creating your Pinterest pins, I do have some templates which I'll have linked down below, which can really make it a lot faster. And I will have a link to the blog post, which will have a list of keywords I recommend that you use when you're searching for your stock images in Canva. I do have plenty more Canva tutorials on my YouTube channel as well, so don't forget to subscribe, and I'll have some links to some other tutorials that you might find helpful as well with related content, things like choosing a color palette for your brand and all those sorts of things. So anyway, hope you found it helpful. See you in the next one.